Welcome to the Level Up show with Nick Lopez, where we talk about how you have leveled up throughout your career and how you have helped others level up through the position of leadership that you're in. Today, I couldn't be any more happy to have Tyler Foose, our second franchise owner at Lyme Painting, on the show today. Mr. Foose, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Foose, you're expecting your second child any day. What are you having, boy or girl?
We don't know yet, so our gender reveal party will be at the hospital. Pretty excited.
Really, I didn't
Um,
know that.
yes, we found out with Gracie, our oldest, and we decided we wanted a surprise this time.
Hmm. How old is Gracie now?
She'll be 3 in September, so over 2.5. It's gone by quickly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you were starting at Lyme, she was she was about to come into the world.
Yes. Yeah, Amanda was pregnant, I think 2 months into the job, and so it's pretty cool. Gracie only knows lime painting.
She bleeds green.
Leads green.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your journey prior to Lyme and how you joined Lyme.
Yeah, totally. Well, I started out after college as a financial advisor. I did that for about 4.5, 5 years at Northwestern Mutual. And there I learned some basic sales skills, finance, accounting, operations, and business ownership. I was technically a statutory employee, but I had a couple of assistants and learned a little bit about it there. Really enjoyed it. And at the time, I was going to Denver Seminary, and I wanted to get in a position where I could have a base salary, 40-hour a week type job, where I could go to school and eventually get into ministry. And so I ended up taking another opportunity at Travelers Insurance as a litigation manager, and I was in their claims department. The eventual goal was they wanted to send me to law school after I was there for about a year. And I really still had the intent on graduating from seminary and going into ministry. And so I think because of that, and because of the push towards going to law school, I started looking for other opportunities. I knew I loved business ownership. I knew I loved sales and interacting with people. And that's where I met you at Greenwood. We were in that Bible study group together, and I had shared kind of my hope to find something else, something that I thought was a better fit for me that would eventually allow me to transition into a ministry role. And so after talking to you about Lyme, I knew that you had a multi-million-dollar company. I knew that you loved what you did. I knew you had a high-end demo, and I was used to working with lawyers and business owners in finance and at Travelers. So I thought it'd be a really good fit. And from there, it just really took off. I enjoyed working at the corporate location, and I think literally 5, 6 months in, I called you and said, I want to be at Lyme for life, whether it's working with you in the corporate location or eventually as we continued scaling out to be on the um, corporate side of things, or whether it was business ownership. And I chose the business ownership route just because of the freedom and autonomy that comes with it, as well as the income opportunity.
Yeah. And remind me, during that time, were we already franchising?
Yeah, we started franchising in 2018, I believe. I started in 2017, I think November of 2017.
Mm.
So I was there right before the first franchisee emerged out of Castle Rock. So I was there kind of at the beginning, right before we started to scale out.
Yeah. And so, you had heard of the business and what I was doing through our Bible study group, had an interest in joining as a sales rep, and after being a part of the company, I had seen the first location get awarded, and just knew that Lyme was for you. And ultimately settled on the business ownership route. And as timing would have it and everything else, you'd become our second franchise owner. Two locations: Boulder, Fort Collins, later more, which we'll talk about here shortly. But what was it that made you come to that realization that look, I'm in the right place and this is for me?
Yeah, totally. Well, when I was leaving Travelers, I was looking for um, either a ministry role full time or some sort of business ownership or sales role. And kind of the reasoning behind joining Lyme was when I was interviewing for ministry roles, I just realized financially it wasn't in the cards for our family at the time. We had student loan payments, we had car payments, a mortgage. We knew we were going to plan for a family. We knew daycare costs, and so I just felt like, you know, God was using me to provide for my family at the time and still is. And so what I loved about Lyme though was that it did have an outreach program, Limelight Outreach. And so that was really important to me to want to give back to the community. And I love that that's, a big thing at Lyme. So that was huge. So I still felt like I could be doing ministry, even if it wasn't in a formal role, by giving back. And then I loved the opportunity to make six-figure income. That was one of the first things I told you is, hey, can I make six figures in my first year? And you said yes, but it's going to require a tremendous amount of work. And you coached me there. And, I felt the love in the corporate location. You spent, I don't know how many hours training me, but a lot, and to be trained from the CEO firsthand, that's pretty cool. And so, yeah, like I said, by May, I think I was at 508,000 in sales by the end of May, and I thought, man, this business model works. I actually really enjoy it, like getting out, meeting with homeowners. I love the impact that we have on our on the lives of our painters. They're not used to working with reputable contractors that pay them fairly and on time, and host barbecues like we did. We had that dinner at the end of the year where you took out a lot of our painters. So I love the value of Lyme in terms of what I could make financially. I love that we gave back. I love that we have great relationship with our painters, and just felt like I was at home. So from there, I decided either I'm going to go the corporate route or the business ownership route. And sometimes I joke with people that I'm not the best employee, because sometimes I can kind of fight back a little bit. So I just thought the best thing that I could do is start my own business, and maybe eventually join corporate as well.
Yeah. So the values piece was obviously huge for you.
Yeah,
The culture.
absolutely. Yeah, the culture. I was in corporate America, and there's nothing wrong with it. They provide so many jobs for people, but there's a lot of red tape, and I wanted to be in a smaller business setting, where I could form a brotherhood with folks that I'm working with, and that's exactly what happened. I felt like we were really close, and it just made it more fun. It just made it a lot of fun, and it's a lot easier going to work every day when you love the people you're working with, and you respect them, and you're just having fun. We had so much fun. We had a high performance culture, but we also gave back, and so it was kind of the best of both worlds.
So within the Denver location, as a sales guy, which was your first position with Lyme, which is really what you're speaking to, we within Denver we have two locations, and within our model we want one salesperson per territory, and as a result, it was you and one other salesperson, and myself as the semi-absentee owner. So there's really three of us, plus our creator, our project manager, and the four of us really are what made up that culture that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you talked about, okay, look, I joined, I did this much in sales. my goal as a recently married, expecting my first child, leaving corporate America, I have a quality of life. What's important to me is, hey, can I still meet that quality of life as a salesperson in the business? And your hope, your expectation was to make six figures, right, within that sales role. Granted, we were an established territory, I believe at that time, about year 5 in, right? So proven brand, and there was a fellow sales rep that was already generating $1 million in sales for the past couple of years, and so that gave you a roadmap to say, look, if he can do it, I can do it. And that was that. If thinking back on those conversations that we had, that was really your perspective, right? And coming from corporate America, your perspective was, hey, look, how many leads do I need to get? What is the conversion rate? What how much do I need to do from a number standpoint to sell X amount? And my response was, look, those metrics, those numbers, to me personally, they have their value in a certain context. But from this standpoint, me and you stepping into this role, I want to focus on the behavior, right? As your coach, I want to focus on the behavior, not necessarily the numbers and having number goals like, hey, I want to sell $1 million and make six figures. Rather, my perspective was, look, no one's ever sold $1 million their first year and done six figures, right? That was my first response. I said, but look, what I do know is that this business model works, and if you put in the behavior, you'll get the outcome. Granted, you have to be coachable, right? So from my standpoint of recruiting, we're welcoming on a new salesperson onto our team. It's like, okay, look, as your coach, you have to be coachable. That's the criteria. You have to have work ethic. Your hair has to be on fire. Back then, those were my only two criteria: coachability, work ethic. Is your hair on fire? Can you learn the model? If you learn the model, you apply the heck out of it, the results come, right? Since then, we've added sales DNA and grit, right? We've just learned as we've scaled, there is a certain emphasis on a sales rep that they do need that grit. And the obvious one being sales DNA. Can you take no? Can you follow up? Do you have that sales interest, right? Beyond just, hey, are you coachable and have work ethic? But nonetheless, it's like, look, Tyler, if you commit to Lyme from a behavior standpoint, I will help you from an accountability standpoint and a process standpoint, right? If you're putting in the behavior, the time, the results will come. And if they don't, that's because we need to tweak the behavior, right? And as your coach, I'll help the process in helping you level up within the business of learning the model, getting better at applying the model. So, hey, let's just focus on maxing out behavior. That was one thing that I really appreciated about you back then and still do now. And, that's really, resulted in you, really just doing a great job and hitting it out of the park at Lyme. Those two things, coachability and work ethic. You've never been somebody that said, oh, this is how we do it, let me change it. Oh, let me make it better. Like, no, this works. I learned it. Okay, now let me just apply the heck out of it.
It's that simple. That's why I wanted to buy the franchise. I mean, I knew even in just 5 months that it worked. And I loved the focus on the behaviors, and the other metrics I think can be important and can be useful. But ultimately, the behavior has to be there. The behavior is always going to drive the results, and that was something you always emphasized with me, and it's true, and it really worked,
Mm.
and it kind of freed my mind too. I didn't need to make it too complex. It really came down to how many doors am I hitting a day, how many hours am I in the field giving estimates, and if I was spending 80% of my day on revenue generating tasks from 9 to 5, maybe 20% production management and admin during the day, I was going to have great results. And so that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. Mm. So you come on board as an owner, and one territory wasn't good enough. You had to get two, right? So Boulder and Fort Collins, and you get through your first year of owning. Actually, you didn't even make it through your first year of owning a franchise before you acquired your third. Um, but so you own three territories now: Boulder, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs. So three territories in Colorado, and you've expressed some interest in being a multi-unit owner and in scaling the business throughout different markets, right? You're in the process of doing that now. What is your long-term goal? What do you see as, just a definitive number? Do you have anything in mind? How many locations would you ultimately like to own?
So this may sound insane to some, but I would love to own as many as I possibly can, up to 100. And Nick, I think I shared this with you. I had a friend recently that called me right after I got rid of my Facebook, and we caught up. I went to CSU with him. This was a guy who ended up, leaving CSU. He just wanted to become a business owner. He didn't want to spend 4 years taking business classes, and he told me he hit the $100 million mark this year, and it really got me to start thinking because I was so grateful and still am to have Boulder and Fort Collins. And I get to work with my mom and brother, and we might get into that a little bit later during this interview. But that was always my dream, is to have a family business. And last year, even with COVID and everything going on, the election, and I know there's a lot of things I'm leaving out. It was a crazy year, but we still had a really good year. And by the end of the year, maybe it was October, I can't remember, we decided to get Colorado Springs. But yeah, going back to my friend that now has $100 million company, I started thinking, man, I'm not thinking big enough. And I know the Lyme model works. And so I don't know if I'll ever get to 100. That's just kind of a fun thing to think about. But I do know for sure I'm looking at Phoenix right now. I think in the immediate future, I would like to get three more territories. And Amanda and I have even talked about getting a condo in Scottsdale and living there for 4 or 5 months of the year, and making sure that those locations are, off and running. And by the way, I don't think we need to do that. We have a lot in place in corporate for them to train those locations. We just really like Scottsdale and Phoenix. So that's not a bad deal either. But yeah, as many as I can, I guess, is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So leveraging a business model where you can truly work on the business, not in it.
Yeah, exactly. What's crazy is I'm in year 2, and I can honestly say that outside of training a new sales guy and working with my brother, my other sales guy, on some things, I've done maybe 15 estimates on my own this year. So I already feel like, and I'm not one of the big investors. That's what's so cool about the Lyme model. I'm just an average guy. I started out, as you mentioned, the corporate location in a sales position, got promoted to GM. I didn't have a ton of capital, but we broke even pretty quickly last year, and became profitable the second half of last year. And so it's cool that even somebody like me, can start out where I was and get to where I am now. And I'm still confident that we're not done yet. So it's pretty cool that a business model has provided all of that opportunity for my family.
Yeah, you started off as an owner operator, and as you built up some capital, you've been able to step into a semi-absentee role, start building a team, and work on the business, not be wearing all the hats with zero employees like day one. So your initial investment didn't necessarily afford you the ability to right out of the gate have that team, or also what's known as a semi-absentee approach. But over time, through your first year, you've been able to build your team and start stepping out of the business. Now year two, that's really starting to catch some momentum. So would you just speak a little bit to what it's been like shifting from being an owner operator doing everything to now coaching and driving process and helping people level up in your new role as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of fun. I took an exam right before I started at Lyme, and I think I shared this with you. What are really my strengths? And I had to be as honest as I possibly could. And it said business ownership number one, sales number two, and that was another reason I joined Lyme. But what I've realized as I've taken more exams over time, what I've realized is truly my passion is working on the operations of the business and coaching my sales team. And I think one of the reasons is I saw what you did for me personally, just the investment, the time you put into me, and what that did for me and my family, and not just my wife and I, but obviously my mom and my brother, and I think potentially future family members down the road. And so um, I wanted to give back and do the same thing that you did for me for others. And so I have daily coaching calls with my brother, and sometimes it's just um, it's almost like I'm a counselor in some ways, because I try to get a read on where somebody is emotionally that day just based on the conversation. And so our coaching calls, they're not always about products. It's not always problem solving on production. Sometimes it's just where's your headspace? How are you protecting your mind? How are you focused on the next thing to do that's going to generate the right activities to get the revenue that you want as a sales guy? How do we structure your day so that you have a life with your family? My brother just had a kid literally a few weeks ago, which is pretty awesome. So what are you going to do to structure your day to be a dad and to take care of your son and your wife, but be productive during the day and maximize your ability? And so those are really fun conversations. I do the same thing with Ryland. He's our other sales guy. And so I'm doing the same thing that you did with me with them. And it's really cool. It's June 18th. I think my brother's around 720,000 in sales from January through now. I don't know where he'll end up on the year, but I think he's going to do over 1 million. And I think Ryland, he's about 2 months in, but he had a wedding. He's had a couple weeks off, but I think he's going to have a really strong year. I could see him doing 400,000 or 500,000 this year. And so it's fun to be able to do what you did for me for others. And so that's probably my favorite part of the business. And then corporate already has a lot of the operations in place. And what I've done is I've tailored a lot of those for us up here in Boulder. Every market's going to be just slightly different. And so you buy a franchise because the model works. So we follow the model and then we make very slight modifications for Boulder and Fort Collins. So it's a lot of fun, and that's what I spend most of my days doing.
Yeah. How have you seen that the business allows you to win in your local market?
Well, first of all, I'll give this is kind of a fun story. So, um, you know, Boulder used to be our second corporate location. So this is our 8th year of working in Boulder. So people are pretty familiar with our brand. Um, and I'm really grateful for that because it made it even easier when I stepped into that. But outside of Boulder, Niwot, Longmont, Erie, Lafayette, Louisville, Gun Barrel, a lot of these smaller towns outside of Boulder literally never seen Lyme, never heard of Lyme. But our branding, our processes, our signs, our throwaway signs, our yard signs, our wrapped trucks, all of that um, really catches people's eye. So I'll go to a coffee shop and they'll see my Lyme shirt and they're like, "Oh, I've seen your trucks. Like we have one truck." And the fun story that I want to share is there's a neighborhood called Legend Ridge Trail in Niwot. It's a really nice neighborhood. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard there's 2 billionaires that live in that neighborhood. Well, there's only 25 homes. Yesterday, we just sold our 12th project. And what was interesting is they never heard of our brand. I gave about 6 estimates last year, and nobody was booking. And we've never heard about Lyme. There's other paint companies that have worked in this neighborhood for years. And it took one lady who was like, you know what, I really like Lyme. I like what you guys stand for. I like your level of expertise. I like the detailed proposals. I like your relational approach. My husband owns a company as well, and we can just tell that you're different. You're different than other contractors, different paint companies that we've worked with. And I landed that one job, and it wasn't even a huge job. As entry door restoration. They had a Brazilian hardwood deck. We did a little bit of stucco work in the back, some minor patches and repairs. But this woman in particular is kind of the mayor of the neighborhood. And so after I worked with her, she told a few of her neighbors. And long story short, I ended up doing 6 homes in a row, literally on the same side of the street within another 2 to 3 months. All those people who were kind of hesitating, they were waiting to see, um, how it turned out at Julia's home. And after we did Julia's home, she highly recommended them to us, and we ended up partnering with them. And now, like I said, we just sold our 11th or 12th job. And so I think it's a culmination of all those things. It's the fact that we don't oversell. I think we do a good job of setting good expectations up front. I think we do a really good job of managing the job for quality control. The process at Lyme to vet out the right crews that can handle high-end custom homes like this has really helped me. I don't know what I would do without that process or without that knowledge that I learned in corporate. So I think there's a lot of things that make us stand out, but I wanted to share that story because again, that was a subdivision that had never interacted with Lyme. We're talking 15, 20,000 square foot homes, and they're not just big, they're nice. They're very custom high end. And so it's cool that in year one in COVID, pandemic, election year, they were able to do that much work in such a nice neighborhood.
So, what do you feel like um, is your favorite part of being a member of the Lyme family?
I think it's the camaraderie between the owners. I said this yesterday to some potential investors, and it's really true. I think for me personally, it's cool that I met the CEO at church, and I just feel like we hit it off right away. And so I've always had a good relationship with you, and then that's really extended to the other owners. And I think culture always starts at the top, and so I think we're selective with who we onboard as owners. And I can honestly say, and I swear, who's ever watching this, you may not believe me, but it's honest to God the truth. There's not a single owner that I don't respect and that I don't like. We have so many great men and women that are part of Lyme, and there's days as a business owner where anxiety kicks in, doubt kicks in, the little demons kick in. And it's cool that, a lot of these other owners, you've gone through it, Nick. A lot of these other owners are going through it. And so the camaraderie is great. And every business owner goes through this, whether they're at Lyme or anywhere else. And so they'll come alongside you and support you. And I'm the type of guy where if I go 2 weeks without a sale, I'm like, oh man, this is brutal. Maybe I can't do this. And I get that encouragement, and literally the next week I sell 80K, and I'm like, oh, this is the easiest thing ever. And so I think it's just I like the culture, I like the camaraderie, I like the systems, processes, technology, marketing, all those things that I think make Lyme really stand out. I mean, I'm literally competing with paint companies who will handwrite their estimate on a napkin. Like that's literally my competition. So it's just been a blessing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about the monster,
Yes.
right? So the brain is outdated hardware, parts of it,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
amygdala, right? And that, it's the fight or flight. And sometimes that fight or flight will hijack our mojo, momentum, state of mind, the ability to perform or believe and have confidence. Or in those moments of, hey, I haven't sold a deal in a couple of weeks, all of a sudden that voice, that amygdala, the fight or flight starts to tell you that you don't have it anymore,
Yes.
or the business is tanking, and oh
Yes.
my gosh, why did I hire this team? Everything's falling apart. But the reality is that that's not true,
Yeah.
right? So being able to better pinpoint that monster and put it in check and understand that, um, those things aren't true. Granted, we're human and we have emotions, and it's not always as easy in the moment. And so being able to rely on, another partner, another brother or sister at Lyme, who can give you some words of wisdom in a position where they can relate. Yeah,
Yes.
it's an unbelievable, um, value to be in business with other business owners.
Absolutely.
They've been there, done it, they know what it's like, and can not only build you up, but um, give you words of wisdom and tips, tricks to relate to where they were at in that situation.
Absolutely. And that's what's fun being in the position I'm in right now is, I did have the luxury of starting out in corporate. And so I kind of learned the model before I even started. But then year one as a business owner, there's different things that you deal with as a business owner and going through that. And so it's been cool, I think over the last 6 months where we've had 37 new locations or something like that, 35 new locations. And now they're going through kind of what I went through last year. And so it's fun being in a position where I can kind of coach them on that side of thing of what is year one like? What is managing a job for the first time like? What is putting a brand new painter, you've never had them work for you before, on a $12,000 square foot home, and everything that goes into that psychologically. And it's fun to be able to, help contribute a little bit to coach them through that as well. And I mean, we have a lot of really sharp owners. I'm learning a lot from them, and a lot of them have just started. They'll tell me things, and I'm like, huh, yeah, I like that. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. So that's the best part about the franchise model is all these owners collectively coming together and making this thing work. And I mean, we have at least trainings once a week that corporate does for us, whether it's sales or production management or setting the right expectation, or, recently we have a paint shortage. And so, coaching through how do we stay ahead of this so it doesn't affect our bottom line. And so one of the things that you did, and then I just recently did, is I ordered 200 gallons of Loxon and 150 of duration and some stain, a ton of caulk because they were even running out of caulk. So all those things, if you were in business on your own, you might not think of, or you might not be able to problem solve, or at least as quickly. Collaboratively, we're able to do things like that. So we have a plan going forward. So those are all the benefits of being a part of a franchise company.
Yeah, as you're launching year one, going back to, some of those uncertainties, that's really what they are is, yeah, I haven't done it before. And so that monster starts to creep up. And the reality is that the monster is the fight or flight. And when you have other brothers, sisters, you can lean on to say, hey, look, I was exactly where you were. I had those concerns. I had that monster, put it to bed. The reality is here's the practical approach, and you're already doing it, and so give it some time, right? For example, you're about to launch, and hey, I don't know if I'm going to get my 100 leads within this period of time. And there's this concern that, hey, what if I can't sell? And what if I can't grow revenue? And then once you've proven that and done it, all of a sudden it isn't uncertain and there isn't doubt around it. And now the concern becomes, I don't know if I can find subs. And it's so hard to find subs because now I need to start doing the work that I sold. And so you find your subs and you've done it. And then now the concern is, oh, production. I've never produced a 12,000 square foot home. And I'm not sure if we're going to do a good enough job, make these clients happy, get 5-star reviews.
Yes.
But as people, given this amygdala, this fight or flight part of our brain, it's only natural to have these doubts and concerns. As a mom and pop or a startup independent business owner, as opposed to being in a franchise, you have to live with that uncertainty independently.
Yes.
And trial the business and fail your way into success versus, a refined process that's the result of failure that's come from those that have proven out the business before you. And so now as a franchise owner, you're in the position to follow the process and get testimonies and validation from fellow franchise partners, which is a powerful part of the model. And if we go back to last year in the middle of COVID, I know we all started off really hot, January, February, March, and then all of a sudden, the world starts shutting down March through May, and there was a lot of uncertainty. And we were able to lean on each other and create a narrative that we wanted and that we shared as owners, versus, I know we had those conversations in some of those meetings where it was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine being a solo business owner in this pandemic. I mean, we really felt for those people, and there was a lot of appreciation between each of us towards being able to lean in to one another and go through that together. But I'm curious, Tyler, if you were to give advice to somebody considering, it doesn't even have to be a franchise, but just a business in general. Someone has hopes and dreams to go into business ownership, but they're not sure if they should do it.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for them to make that leap of faith?
So I would say I love being a business owner for many reasons. I think it's not for everyone though. I guess my advice would be, really give it some time. Think about how it may change your life, and make sure that you're self motivated, because you don't have a boss telling you what to do every day. We have the franchise model. We have everything that you need to be successful. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So I think my advice would be, make sure that you are disciplined, make sure that you're coachable, that you follow the model. That's ultimately what you're buying. And I know it's not just for the franchise, but yeah, my advice would be to make sure that it's a good fit. Just be honest with yourself. Take some aptitude tests like I did. Make sure it's really part of your DNA, really what you want to do. I think the other piece of advice that I would give is, anytime you start a business, you have to pay your, employees first. Pay your employees, the vendors, suppliers. Everyone gets paid before yourself. And so my recommendation would be to live off as little as possible, to sacrifice now so you can enjoy the fruits of your labor later on. I think if you do those two things, I think you'll be successful and you'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Being smart and financially savvy about how you're spending money and where you're putting it. Very, very wise advice.
Yes, thank you.
But man, Foos, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you sharing all of your thoughts. And being our very first guest on the Level Up Show.
Oh, awesome. Let's go.
Let's
Hey,
go.
I'm humbled to be on this. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're tuning in, please smash that like button, share, subscribe, and comment. And we'll see you on the next one.